Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Nikki Clucci, and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. Hi guys, welcome back. We are back today, and I have a absolute sweetheart of a guest today. Today, I am joined by Michele Allard, who is the Director of Operations with Western Canada Fire and First Aid and the Executive Director for Saga Universal Training. Michele was previously a volunteer firefighter for 8 years with Beaumont and is a health and safety person who took on that extra role of that volunteer firefighter after a workplace incident kind of led her to reevaluate her skill set. Michele and I had the honor and privilege of meeting when Blue Line and Western Canada Fire and First Aid decided to collab on some amazing courses, including intermediate first aid and first aid recertifications, and their new super cool, you guys, medical first responder course. I'm not gonna steal Michele's thunder. I'm gonna let her tell you all about it. But guys, it's incredible. And guess what? If you are a Blue Line or a podcast listener, you can get a discount code to take those courses. All you got to do is send me a voicemail or send me an email or send me a DM, and I will send you that code. You can register online. They have courses running twice a week for first aid, and the medical first responder course is running at least once a month, usually twice a month. Guys, tons of opportunities to take this course. So let's take it away. Michele, how are you today?
Good. Well, thank you, first of all, Nikki, for having me on your podcast. Like I mentioned before, I actually started listening to your podcast. Well, after I met you, I'm like, I got to learn more about this girl. If you ever have the pleasure of meeting her in person, energy, good energy, but this girl get things happening. I just hope I did listen to a lot of your podcasts, and I gotta admit, this is quite an honor. I hope I'll step up to the plate like your other ladies, because you had some pretty badass ladies in there. So that's to tell a bit more of what we do. Actually, I had been bugging the owner of Western Canada Fire and First Aid. I known him for well over 20 years. We met as clients originally, and I was always telling him how he could improve training, because one of the big thing I learned from health and safety, you train whether a worker, an emergency response worker, properly. This is what's gonna, ensure you do good quality work. But when we go into any emergency first responder, this is awesome. Often life skills that's gonna save your life. And both of us had a passion for training. What we do offer, actually, Western Canada Fire and First Aid just turned 30 years this year. This is where you would actually go and take your training. We do anywhere from, like Nikki mentioned, we just brought in the medical first responder that is targeted for fire departments. And it's a new initiative from actually the province to recognize that course. So we're quite happy. And if somebody's interested, the best thing would be to give us a call. But we also do more. We do heavy equipment training. We do first aid. We do working at heights training. Of course, we do all the Energy Safety Canada that somebody would need if they're working in oil and gas. We're based in Edmonton. Our second company, Saga Universal Training, was actually myself being in the field. I often had experienced worker that were running equipment that were saying, okay, it's time to recertify. I believe in getting retrained and somebody checking my skill to see if I'm up to date. But honestly, I don't have time to go and spend 4 days or a full week doing the training. We were starting to hear blended training, and with that, I was talking to the owner. I said, a lot of my guys, they would love to do their theory. There's during the day when it's not too busy, and then they would come in and do a day of skills. But surprisingly, and that's something that we kept when we launched Saga, is we know there's some people when the training works for them, but other people that the traditional still works, so the instructor led. So we always wanted to give option to the students on how they could best learn. But in 2019, Saga was launched. Talked with the owner of Western Canada Fire and First Aid, and at the same time, he was looking at how he could expand the company and innovate. And it was the meeting of the minds also with our wonderful IT person that would have not been possible. He basically created blended training where the student could do the theory when they had the time, then they would come in and just do the skills. So that allowed an experienced operator from being away for almost a week to being away for a day and a half to a full day. But whenever he had a spare time, or if they wanted to do it at home on a weekend when they're not as busy, they were able to do it. But one key component that with Western Canada Fire First Aid, but with Saga, is we knew not everybody learns the same way. So we did keep the traditional in the classroom training, which was a key element because one key thing we were about at both companies is we know that knowledge is power and the skills that you learn will probably save your life at one point or avoid a major incident. So 2019, Saga was born. We're glad to report that we have training partners that are in Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Northwest Territory, Saskatchewan. We got quite a few in Alberta now, and we got two in BC. So there are people that are using our program and they're doing training to the public. But inside of that, we also have a lot of companies that they decided to use our program for in-house training. And where the link comes back and where we're myself and the owner, we're finding a bit of return to our source is when we started doing fall protection for fire department, we we actually landed Edmonton Fire because it's now as per the OHS regulation in Alberta, fire department must wear fall protection whenever possible. That was quite an experience for us. Himself being 26 years as a volunteer firefighter, and he was a fire instructor to go back to his roots. And it was more, they had a need, they needed something that was for firefighters and also that was efficient, a good training course. Then we started hearing because a lot of our trainers are their background are emergency services. We're kind of running with the same clan. We tried to diversify people that are working here, but for some reason they got fire background or medical or police. We had a few of our instructors that were retired police officer. But we started hearing that there was a new program that was starting at the province level, mostly to assist the volunteer fire department, and that was the medical first responder. We're extremely fortunate that one of our program developer and some people that helped us are trained paramedics, firefighter, but also we're able to pull feedback from different of our contact. And that's how we came to having our medical first responder course. It is also, we're working closely with EHS on that program because it is a one of their initiative to help fire department finding other solution to give their members medical training. Through that, we kept on working with other fire departments. They needed off-highway vehicle. which we already had one for the industry, but we adapted to emergency response and to the trailering. So we're working, this is fun for us because we're gives us a chance to work with a group, but also to give back to being a firefighter. I know that for me, I know how much being in a fire department brought me to the point that I am. And I know that's going to be one of your question later on, so I'll keep that one. I won't jump right into it. But it's fun to be able to give back and help and find solution. Right now, we're working with fire. We're hoping at one point to be able to offer that service. If there's anything in the medical field, if there's anything in the with police department, because we know there's a need, we want to work at that. We're still going to stay with our first love, our passion, and because I come from OHS background, I've seen how training allowed people to a worker to make the right decision. We're still going to be working with the worker, whether they work on the pipeline, they're a roofer, a scaffolder, somebody that works for a catering company. We still want to be there for them.
I just love how versatile you guys are. Like you're just like the way that you pivoted, the what you're seeing what needs to happen, right? Before you knew that, you know, we would need online learning, you guys are thinking like we can't be pulling guys from the site for 4 days to do right. Like it's really good how flexible and just how many times you guys offer the courses, because that was the reason that I was like Blue Line needs to pair up with somebody, because I can't offer it as often as I would like to and as often as people need it, but you guys can. And so I'm like, I will send people your way because you guys are offering first aid twice a week. You're offering this medical first responders course twice a month. Like it's amazing. Like what you guys are doing, the accessibility and again, the different ways that people learn. I just really think it's such a cool way to reach as many people as you can and help as many people as you can, which again, all for helping people. And so you kind of touched on it a little bit. So your kind of time as a volunteer firefighter, you said when before we started recording, you're like, yeah, I was going to do it for 2 years and I ended up doing it for 8 years. So you came from that like health and safety background. How did you get into that? And then how did that kind of pivot into this volunteer firefighter role?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Blue Line Fitness Testing is a premier law enforcement fitness testing and training center based in Edmonton. Specializing in helping individuals prepare for the physical demands of a career in law enforcement, we offer comprehensive fitness evaluations, specialized training programs, and classes tailored to meet the unique needs of our clients. Our facility hosts a range of classes and are committed to fostering a supportive and empowering environment where clients can achieve their fitness goals. Our team includes experienced trainers who bring specialized expertise in law enforcement, self-defense, personal training, and rehabilitation. We engage through our community through challenges, events, and our podcast, and we are dedicated to helping individuals succeed in their fitness journeys and career aspirations in law enforcement. Are you looking to get started with your career? Come see Blue Line Fitness Testing, and we'll get you there.
I actually started when I was in high school. I know a lot of us went through that aptitude testing to see what you would be good at when you grow up. And first test I took told me, no, you're not designed to being in emergency services, point blank. At that point, my dad was in public relation. My mom was a librarian. Oh, it's okay. You know, I kind of went, okay, I'll go in management and so on. In my last year of high school, because I was always involved in a first aid brigade in high school, and one of the counselor goes, you know, that doesn't work. Like do that test again. And it turns out, yeah, I should be in the medical field or emergency services. But at that point, I made up my mind, and you have to understand that you're talking to somebody that used to be a scaredy cat here, and I'm still am, by the way. But I got better at controlling it. So I'm like, yeah, no, not for me, and went on to management. But you know, when they said at one point, your life comes in a full circle. started being an administration manager for a heavy equipment company, and they give me the health and safety portfolio at the branch I was at. The manager, operation manager, kept on going, well, you're transferring to Edmonton and they're looking for somebody full time. So I'm like, yeah, but and he's like, what? And I'm like, well, I'm thinking of becoming a paramedic. He's like, well, finally you spit it out. Then I gotta say, as a health and safety person, got my best training with heavy duty mechanics. So very straightforward. You got to be there to, if you're honest about keeping them safe, they'll work for you. But I will say it, they have the BS meter very well tuned. So started laughing, and I'm like, well, anyways, I'll start at health and safety. That's kind of a half measure. A couple of months in Edmonton, I was teaching a course on incident investigation, which it was one of the things that really got me in health and safety, trying to understand why you might have 10 people doing the same thing and why something happened to the eighth person. And I had to understand that. So that what really drove me in health and safety, and then the psychology of people, understanding why things happen. Because you probably heard people getting accused, you're a klutz. That's why you always get hurt. Things happen. Hey, if there's never any incidents, that means nobody is working. But then I mentioned I was working with heavy duty mechanics. We had shop mechanics and we had field mechanics. I look at the field mechanics, and they had less incident and less injuries, but also the quality of the workmanship was higher. So because I was having a lot of those little incident, the mechanic that hit his hand literally with a hammer and going, and there's no distraction, like what's going on, and understanding also the psychology of what happens in some incidents. And there were a lot of it, the training, the mindset. And I got a chance to observe those field mechanics, even the way they would prepare their job, that they were, okay, they were doing their pre-planning. I'm going to get there, going to get on site. I kind of know what the problem is. But one thing that they taught me is never assume that what the person is reporting is what is actually going on. And also I'm taking alongside with working with these guys, I'm starting to take my investigation course. And I'm laughing because I told my instructor, my God, the best investigator should be heavy duty mechanics in the field, because like these guys got the technique. But so slowly started getting more training, look at the behavior safety side also. Why does a person decide to do an unsafe action? Then realize nobody wakes up in the morning and says, hey, I'm going to get hurt today. Nobody does that. But then they get to work, their manager is telling their supervisor, they're like, you got an hour to do this job. They're motivated. They may not have the right tool. They're scared for their job. So understanding why a worker was put in that position fascinated me. So went on to do my degree in health and safety. And there's a lot of science also in health and safety when you talk about occupational hygiene, which is basically a lot of how chemical injured a person, how vibration, how noise, ergonomics is a big part of it, and how to make people not only, stop the big accident, but when you talk about ergonomics, I quite a few good friends that are and now retired RCMP. And in those days, they only had the right to have one gun holster. Well, one of them, we go out on a mountain bike trip, and he had taken a tumble. We're patching him up, and I see this huge bruise on the side of his hips. I'm like, oh my God, we got to bring you to the hospital. Like, when did you got that done? He's like, oh, this is not from the mountain biking. It's actually my gun holster. And it's just the way it was sitting. They finally, I think like 15 years later, realized a lot of the officer were getting that bruise. And at that point, that can become more severe.
Yeah.
But it was, I just that sense of observation, but that kept me in the field of health and safety. Then I got into the fire department. I actually ended up doing my EMR, but my health and safety job at that time was paying me way more than I would have as a paramedic. Didn't have to do shift work, but always with the fire department, I responded nights and weekends. And I took my hat off to all those paramedics and police officers that their job was to work shift work. For me, I could, to a certain level, say, okay, this weekend I got something, or I've been really busy at work, so I gotta stand down for a bit. But that's what got me in health and safety, and then to see the difference I could bring to people. One of the example, I was working on a few projects on pipeline projects, and before I came and worked for Western Canada Fire and First Aid, I first had to shut down a pipeline site because of unsafe, the walls, the shoring weren't appropriate for the kind of ground. And the welders were not impressed, the pipeliners. I think there was the project lead was the only person that supported me. And of course, my operation team that they were building the pipeline for. They saw the picture and they were like, we got your back, don't do what you need to do. Well, in that group of welders, there were the kind of those rock star welders that they're really good. And one of them went one side of me, the other side of me, because I was causing all those delayed. I told him, I was like, okay, okay, if you want to go back, like sign a waiver. And I was joking. I would never let him go back. But I'm like, I'm trying to save your life here. And apparently I used to have the nickname Black Cat because when I would call for something would happen, guess what happened? That trench started collapsing. And everybody looked at me, and it happened more than once that I called, this is going to happen. And this is why I'm stopping you. They all looked at me, and I'm like, well, that's going to be a mess to shovel out. I got to admit, like, I had to report back to my manager going, where were you? I said, I was standing way far. I had nothing to do for the collapse, but I called it. Years later, I get a call from that gentleman because we work on many projects. He's like, I'm stopping work, pulling my team out. You got to come. And I walked in and he's arguing with the project manager. He's telling him to get back and going. And I wasn't the direct safety person for that project, but I worked for the same company. And I'm like, walk up to that project manager, big burly man. And I'm like, yeah, here to back them up. And we're shutting down work until we get the proper shoring box. And he's like, oh, well, I'm going to get another crew. And luckily I had the pull in the company of saying, no, like the whole work side is shut down. And anyways, had helped them out because I always was somebody that work also, not just, showing up and telling them you're shut down. I'm like, look, we're going to call so-and-so. We'll get you a shoring box. We'll get you back in running until tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. So as we're getting everything, they call it for a day. I come back the next day, inspect that everything is safe. And then I had informed their safety person saying, I don't know why they call me, but, I took the lead on it. I hope you don't mind. So I go back, and when I get there, I get this most amazing cake that's left on my SUV that I was driving, and a nice thank you card. And that was a miserable welder. His wife is a baker that I came to discover. And when he said, "Yeah, I thought I was losing my job," I called her. She came in, and we since stayed in contact. We became friends. But he said, that day that trench collapsed, I never wanted to admit it to you, but you literally saved our life. We would have still been in the trench. So that's something. Afterwards, he became a great advocate of health and safety.
Well, so one of my best friends, and she listens to the podcast all the time. So I'm going to give her a shout out right now because she is also a health and safety. She's OH&S. So Kaylee, I know you're listening to this episode right now, and I know you're in your car nodding your head and being like, absolutely, fucking yes, that's correct. That's exactly right. So I want to give her a props because we talk about this all the time because, again, she's a female in this role, having to go in. She works for, and I won't throw the company out there just in case she doesn't want me to say, but for a very large construction company, very, very, very large, very well known. And so she goes out to all of these work sites and has to deal with these sometimes very opinionated men who are like, who is this girl? And I always say, I'm like, girl, I don't know how you do it, because I would be like, if somebody started going up one side of me and down the other, and all I was doing was trying to save their freaking life, I would snap. Like there would be no professionalism. Like I would be like, you want to go toe to toe, motherfucker? Like, let's go, because I will go toe to toe with you and put you in your place. Because yes, I am shutting this down because I want you to be able to go home to your family. And so when I hear, like, again, like these women that are out here that are doing this work, and like I say to Kayla all the time, you're not doing it for like shits and giggles. Like, you know what? I just feel like I'm just gonna like shut this work site down today. You're doing it because you're like, if I don't do this, these people are not going to go home at the end of the day. Their families are not going to see them. Their wives are not going to see them. They're like, their mothers and fathers are going to be at their funeral. Like, and so I always just think to myself, like, yes, it's an inconvenience. Yes, maybe you're not going to get paid that day. And yes, that's a pain in the ass, but not getting paid for one day or being dead. Let's contemplate which one is more important, right? So, I mean, I think like the work that you do is so, like, it's just so important once they realize it. And it's like, it's almost like, not that you ever want to wish like a workplace incident on a workplace, obviously, but it's kind of like, you just want to turn around and be like pointing at the trench and be pointing at them and be like, this is why, this exact reason is why, or fucking told you so. You kind of want to, right? Like I would want to do that.
And you're right. Like some of the best thing that I mentioned, like a couple of times for me, I was lucky. Whatever I was predicting actually happened, like within a day or in the exact moment. And like you say, is a lot of them, they're driven, they got a schedule, they got things to do. But the biggest thing, like your friend Gal out, and you can give her my phone number. Would love to go for coffee with her and we can talk about that whole thing. It's like, I know there's so many great safety person out there that literally they put their heart on the line, and they're out there for the right reason, and they want to be part of the solution, but employers don't let them. There's other ones, there's the seagull safety person. That's not who I'm talking about. The person that just goes around and grabs the clipboard and, just literally gives shit to people and walk away. Your friend doesn't sound like that. That's one case. I've seen some people like that, but the majority of them is they got into safety. And, you were asking me why I got into safety. There's something I don't share to a lot of people is a lot of it is my dad had PTSD from when he was a young teacher. at a young men's college, himself probably 22, 25. Two young men for the summer. Their summer job was to move some very heavy table. It's one of those, yeah, I'm talking something that happens probably in the 1960s. And they fell to their death in an elevator. My dad only told me I knew something had happened, but it's only when I got in health and safety and we were talking about elevator safety for some reason. And he's like, you mean that could have been stopped if, like the new standard with elevator? And that's when he finally, after all those years, told me about it. But you're right that, I wish we could have an ad saying, if your safety person cares enough to stand toe to toe with you and tell you, I'm shutting the work site, that person knows how to count, knows how much she's impacting or he's impacting the work site. And when they're doing their investigation, it's not because, they're taking their sweet time just for the hell of it, is they want to make sure they find all the cause so it doesn't happen to somebody else.
Mm.
Because, and that's sometimes like I seen that pushback. And there's like I say, like I explained to you, that welder that used to think I was evil, and I became a good friend of his. And what's cool now, I got people that come and take their training with us just to pop in their head and saying, "You're still here," and then bug me a bit, but big hug. And there were people, I was their safety person, and they want to check in on me. And every 3 years, apparently, it's a good time to come in. But it is a tough job. I don't want to say that to that extreme because I know what you used to do. And I heard some of the other ladies in the podcast, at least when somebody goes crazy or, they have some severe behavior, we can call the police and they take them away from the side. But, I gotta admit, I actually had a case of sabotage. Cannot give too much information on that one, but let's say what that person did created an environmental situation for a company. Luckily, they had a very good environmental person with myself. We were able to figure out there was something wrong with the system. Basically, they had an ironclad secondary, they had secondary and a turret containment system, but still the chemicals they were using at that plant managed to get outside of the building. And it's when we were doing a turnaround, I was curious of, how things work, and being a safety person, I'm putting somebody in a confined space. I want to know what's in the confined space. And we found like somebody had take a pickaxe to the cement wall
Oh
and
my God.
pierced the lining. And we were like, what? So take some pictures, get out of that confined space, pull in the operation manager. I'm like, this is not corrosion. This is somebody willingly putting holes in the containment. And he's like, yes. And we're all looking at who's missing in the room. And it is literally somebody that, and unfortunately in his mental health, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't want to do a diagnosis of what, but he was delusional and it got to that extreme. But then I discovered, because he would get a new person to go at the bottom of that pit to clean, I had to send 4 people for blood tests for about a year, because he exposed them to chemical that could have caused cancer. I was like beyond myself. Luckily, the exposure was very limited, but that one always creeped me out. But it got to the point that he tried to gain access again into the building. But luckily, the company we had made our case that we had hired a security company, and they were telling him, and they caught him before he caused any more damage to anybody. I would rather, honestly, my pipeliner that's pissed off at me, I'll take him any time over that. Like that I understand where he's coming from. But
Mhm.
somebody that willfully go out there and tries to expose his coworker and try to cause so much damage to the company, if that wasn't caught off on time, that company would have went under.
Oh, for sure.
And and it's for us, as I know, in health and safety, we don't want to think that way, but there's honestly some people, for whatever reason, that are like that. Most of them you can reason with them, but
Yeah, that's
so
wild. That's crazy to me. Like, again, like maliciously doing things like that. I just don't understand why people choose to do that. Like, I mean, yes, obviously there's mental health issues and things like that, but it's astounding to me that people would like purposely choose to cause harm to another person that is just trying to do their job at work. Like, it's wild. It's totally wild.
So, what led you to fire then? I know you were saying it was an incident, a workplace incident. So, what was that?
but that day I'm doing an incident investigation training, and I get pulled out of the training. I was the one teaching the course, and I'm like, well, can't you call 911? And they're like, no, 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 you got to come. I get there. It was one of my coworker having not one seizure, multiple seizure.
Oh my
I'm
God.
looking around. I'm like, somebody call 911. They're like, yeah, but the ambulance is like 15 minutes away. I look around. None of the other first aid attendant are around. Two other people come up to me and they're like, I got somebody in my family that have epilepsy. I think this is what this person is suffering from. We'll work with you. So I did my best to, we did our best to keep him safe. And finally, what seemed like a century, the ambulance got there, but they actually got there within like 5 minutes. After that, I got back to the office and we did a debrief, and I'm like, what happened? Why did everybody disappear? And my manager goes, well, it's actually a natural response. They take the course, but they're afraid. And he's like, how are you doing? Well, I start crying and I'm like, oh my God, I'm totally in the wrong field. And he's like, okay, calm yourself, take some deep breath. And he's like, you're not used to it. I'm like, well, why did they come to me? They're like, you're the safety person. In an emergency, people go to the safety person. You want to be in the field, you have to get over yourself. Go to my night class and start talking to some of my other classmates and discover a lot of them are volunteer firefighters. So exposure therapy. So I sign up to my local fire department, walk in, and I'm like, okay, I'll do that for 2 years. And I make it sound like it's easy, but I didn't know I was claustrophobic. About, I don't know, 2 or 3 sessions in the fire department on training nights. They put an SCBA mask. They didn't put an SCBA. They put a mask. I'm in shape. Hey, I'm going to beat everybody on the challenge of how long you last on the tank. Perfect. Nailed that one. They blindfold the mask. I stop breathing. I'm claustrophobic. Again, I'm like, okay, what do I do? And I do the walk of shame. But before I hit, I tried to sneak out the fire hall. Before I'm even able to sneak out, one of the captain looks at me and he's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm not done for this. Like, I stopped breathing. I'm claustrophobic. I'm a scaredy cat. This was a big mistake. And he goes, no, He's like, everybody got their fear when they get in the fire department. You got to face it. So fast forward, I work really hard at wearing it. I was actually walking around my house with an SCBA mask that was blindfolded. You can imagine how many times I hit stuff. But luckily at that time, I had the dog that would have been a very good dog for somebody that was blind. She learned to place herself so I wouldn't hit stuff. But finally we have one of the course to get your 1001 is the famous breathing apparatus course. I get in, I am super nervous, but everybody had given me calming techniques and pep talk with the fire chief and pep talk with other people. And I went into that course with a wonderful other female firefighter, and she's the kind of ladies that would go, I got your back. And literally, she got your back. We're doing an exercise. I'm going up some stairs. There's a team that are going down the stairs. The second person on the other team start panicking and grabs me, and I'm literally upside down and I'm blindfolded, but my sense of orientation is like, this is not good. I got my back to the stair, and if he drops me, I'm falling down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, so at one point, I hear my partner saying, you put her down. If not, I'm going to kick your, you know what. And I laughed because a very proper lady, a mother of four, Mama Bear was coming out. But also I felt somebody grabbing my pack, putting me back on my hands and knees because I'm crawling up those stairs. I got on top of the stairs. I'm like, panic attack, ripped the mask off. One of the instructor assistant goes, oh, you're dead. You're so dead. Instructor comes around. He's like, no, you didn't see what happened. Anybody else would have had a panic attack, like being upside down and you don't know which is up and down. So they allow me to take 5. My partner, I'm like, no, I'm so done. Like I got to give up. And, this is my weakness. And I'm talking myself out of it. She's like, I'm not sticking around with these guys for another 4 days without you. Like, really? She's like, you got to keep me calm because something's going to happen with these guys. So I'm like, yeah, but what about the blindfolded? She comes back and she's like, let's go, girls. Slaps on the mask back on my face, connect my regulator. And she's like, go, go, go. We got to go get that person. And all of a sudden she's like, and when you panic, look at what I put in your mask. She had grabbed a Christmas napkin with Christmas trees and little elf on it. And she's like, when you panic, look at the elf. And I was like, okay, this is the dumbest thing I ever heard. But you know what? I finished. When I went from being that panic person on the first weekend to the second weekend, we actually, during the exercise, there was a crew that was you're going in and out of the house. And we thought we had an actual event because they had filled up basically the basement we were working in of an old museum. And we thought we heard somebody calling for Mayday. One of the few person that still had some energy was myself, my partner, and 2 other very experienced firefighter. The instructor says, I need 2 people to go in. Those 2 experienced guys are like, we're going to go in, but we may need help. My partner looks at me. I'm like, I was already behind those 2 guys and going, what are you doing? We got somebody to go look for it. Once we got into the structure, somebody was panicking. He got himself tangled in a situation. It just needed to be calmed down. Got him out. The instructor and those 2 firefighters look at me and like, aren't you the chick that's claustrophobic and afraid of everything? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. She kind of left that way. So it really, like that little story afterwards, all of a sudden they're like putting me on the fire truck. The biggest vehicle I had driven before the fire truck was a Volkswagen Jetta. But then they're like, okay, you got to learn to drive the fire truck. And I'm like, that thing? Like, you want me to back it in the fire hall? I hope you got somebody that can fix it. But same thing, through the support of the team, but also not giving up. And at that point, I'd figure out with that if I'm able to survive the SCBA, I'm going to learn to drive the fire truck. And I can tell you, I was really proud driving down 50th Street on calls. Yeah, I was that girl that was taking the middle of the lane and honking my horn and having a big smile. Yes, I was going to fire, like I was an emergency, but going from there and then the captain going, oh, I think it's that address and you got to turn your truck fairly quickly. And, you got a bunch of vehicle, a bunch of people where before I would have been like, I was driving at a safe speed, but I would have been crawling at 10 kilometers an hour. That I got myself to that point. But that's some of the things I'm going to carry for the rest of my life. But it also, the value of friendship and having people that have your back. And I'll be honest, there's people like we had to work as a team. There's people you get along really well, like in any workplace. There's other people that honestly you would rather not work with them. But because they're really good at firefighter, you got to check your difference at the door when you get out of the fire truck, and you got a job to do. And that taught me afterwards in the workplace, like anybody else I worked with, the narcissistic, the sociopath, all of these guys. And at one point, I'm French, I'm passionate. I wanted to tell that person off during a meeting when it wasn't the most constructive things and pull myself back because I learned also how to control the emotion. I'm not perfect. I got better at it. Our fire department, we had 6 wonderful ladies at that time. The friendship and what was cool about how we were working together, often I'll be honest, I avoided working with too many ladies because unfortunately there was drama. Those girls, oh my God, we could come out of a fire and you might have screwed up. You weren't getting yelled at. It's like, hey girl, what's going on here? You weren't your best. Like, what can we do next time? And to have that kind of sisterhood of you could be honest, but then that influence was very positive to the rest of the fire department. We were fortunate because we had also a fire chief that was fostering that environment. It wasn't always like that. We went through three fire chiefs. There was one that unfortunately we lost a lot of ladies because of the old school, really you're a girl, you gotta, and all of us, I can tell you, we had one lady that was 5'2". She was the toughest firefighter I ever met. This girl, we had to help her to get on the fire truck because of her pants, but give her a fire hose. She was one of the bravest one. But that gentleman almost broke the fire department. And I realize now, because I always wonder, because in preparation again with your podcast, I sat down. Right now I'm working with actually 2 people that are from my old fire department. One of them is cool. She's a young lady. I think she's at her 1 year. She comes from a family of firefighter, but I can tell you she's just as tough as her dad and her uncle. But I also sat down with other male firefighter and said, "Hey guys, I'm doing this podcast. What kind of advice could I give to an upcoming lady firefighter, but also a woman that works like I work in enforcement in OHS, and I was in roles that I shut down some major site. I shut down some pipelines and got screamed at and got threatened with lawsuit and so on because the situation was unsafe. And So I sat down with them, and I know also dealing with people that were, we'll say, weren't supportive of having women in the workplace. There's times I could have done a better job of dealing with the issue. But for me, it was when I sat down with them, they're like, first of all, learn to be able to give people their feedback. Because I'm somebody, I used to be that people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, it was like pleasing people all the time. You're not saving their life. You're not helping them get a better person. Being able also to take the feedback. Because something I learned from some of the ladies in the fire department and some of the firefighters, they'll take it, but you better be ready if you screw up. They'll call you to order. And that serves me in a lot of workplace. And, even if I was the safety person, that was probably one of my secret asset was workers knew they could come back and going, by the way, you're wrong. There's, you guys are putting this and this policy in place. It's not correct. It's so complicated that you're putting us at risk, or you got the wrong piece of equipment. And being able to step on my ego and saying, what other solution is there out there? But I learned a lot of that. I learned from, first of all, the fire department, but I brought it over in health and safety.
Okay, well, I want to start wrapping up just because I've taken a lot of your time and you are an extremely busy human. And I know you're going to have amazing answers to these like rapid fire questions that I like to ask. So I want to get to them because I can't wait to hear your answers. But I'm going to start off with my number one, which is, what is your favorite food or snack while you are working? So that could be on the work site, that could be in your office, that could be when you were a volunteer firefighter. What is the favorite food or snack that keeps you going?
Chocolate.
Yes.
Chocolate. Always chocolate.
I do love it. Just without hesitation. Chocolate. It has to be there. It's got to be. It is. It's good. What's the favorite chocolate?
Oh, I love all of them, but I gotta admit, like a good milk chocolate. I don't know if Bernard Callebaut is still around, but if somebody ever had one of his chocolate, they just melt in your mouth. I will mispronounce their name, but ginseng that are based out of Sherwood Park, they make those chocolate. But first, the problem with their chocolate tastes amazing, but the works of arts that they do on it, you don't want to eat that chocolate. So it's, love the quality, but we got to talk about the design here.
You're like, I need you to make it slightly uglier so I don't feel so guilty eating it. Yes. Okay. Number two would be, what would be your favorite piece of equipment that you got to play around with, work with, use while you were working? And again, could be job site, could be with fire, could be like, what was the favorite thing that you just like love to get your hands on?
Fire truck.
Yes. Okay. I figured it was going to be that, but I was like, maybe there was something different. Yes. Fire truck. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty cool.
In a close second, I got to admit, because here we do have loader, excavator, and we also have skid steer. But the loader, when you're standing in it and you're on top of the world, the excavator, that one, I like it. But all those lever it and the feet and all the coordination, you'll have to come and try it. We got to do a podcast on you driving the excavator and the loader. But hats off to anybody that drives those equipment, but they are fun.
Yes, I think it would be super cool to be in those big equipments. Like years ago, my husband and I took a skid steer out to a friend's place to help move a bunch of like animal manure and stuff like this. And I'd never been in one before. And my husband's like, okay, well, here we go. This is what you're doing. And I was loving it. He could not get me out. He's like, no, it's my turn. And I was like, no, go find something else to do. You can shovel by hand, like whipping around. Like I was like, I loved it. So yes, heavy equipment, I'm all for. I would definitely be down to go try some stuff out, which is awesome. Okay. Number three, what would be a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's looking to get into either a first responder career? Because you've really talked about like so many good things, like the teamwork and the camaraderie and like the support and like the actually having your back in that like sisterhood that you had within the fire service. Or, you know, like, would it be maybe on the safety side of things, like, again, coming into it with that passion? Like, what is something that you would want to say to somebody, maybe a young female or somebody that's coming to this job from something different that's like, hey, I want to check this out?
It's actually, don't let your fear and anxiety stop you. If you got a passion, work through it. Hey, you're hearing it for a scaredy cat that's in, getting better here, but also surround yourself with good people. Keep an open mind because I have friends from different background. I got a friend that's we joke he's a brain surgeon, but he's a cardiologist. And we're proud to say he used to be one of our junior firefighter to somebody that's, heavy duty mechanics. I learned from everybody around it. Take any chance to learn from the people around you. Have a good, close friends. Sometimes those friends you may not see for years, but I'm fortunate that I got like some friends that we pick it up after 6 months. But you have to be your true self and be there for them too.
I love that. I think, like you said, I really, especially just hearing like what you persevered through, even like each step of the way of like, well, I'm kind of a scaredy cat and I'm kind of, and they told me I shouldn't do emergency services. And then, it wasn't really something I kind of fell into it. And then, oh shit, this like emergency situation happened. And like, I kind of panicked. And like, so instead of being the person that was like, no, thank you. Like I panicked. Clearly I'm not made for this. You were like, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to get better at it rather than avoiding it. And so I think like that speaks volumes to like the type of person you are and the type of personality that you have, is that rather than shy away from something that was hard, you're like, well, let's just fucking do it better. Like, let's wear an SCBA in our house blindfolded and like wander around our house until we get used to it. Like that type of stuff. I love that because there's nothing that sends me more into a rage than hearing from people, well, I can't do it. And then hearing like the litany of excuses around it. And I'm just like, or just fucking do it. Like stop with the excuses, just put the work in, get it done. And like, you might just surprise yourself. You might just surprise yourself that actually you're good at that thing, or it's not as scary, or it's not as hard, or maybe it is still really fucking hard, but guess what? You can still do it. So you can do it. Even if it is hard, we can do hard things. So yeah, I think that is a phenomenal piece of advice, and surrounding yourself with good people, because good people, it doesn't matter how scary things are. It doesn't matter how like gnarly things get. It doesn't matter how bad things get. If you have a good crew around you, man, you can make everything work. You can make everything work. It doesn't matter what's going on. That good crew is going to get through it. And at the end of it, you're going to sit down and go like, well, that was fucking wild, but it was fine because we were in it together and we got to do it together. So yeah, absolutely love that. Michele, this has been incredible. We have talked about so many cool things, so many cool stories. Thank you for sharing all of that. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the listeners before we wrap up?
Well, the biggest thing is I think in the workplace, something that a lot of ladies underestimate, and that's another tip. Two things. Follow your gut. Don't make the difference. Learn to make the difference between your gut and your anxiety. That's a little trick. We could talk about it at another time, but your instinct is there for a reason. Surround yourself with good women around you, because we need that root, especially when we're working with a man environment. I was of that generation. We thought we had to become little mans. And I realized one of my biggest assets in my different careers was when you know what, I'm gonna follow my gut. And I know I got things because I'm a lady that I can do differently than a man. And it often was an advantage. But the other one is, as ladies, I've seen it too many times in the workplace that women feel they're in competition. And in reality, and I seen it with the 6 ladies that I work with, when we work together and there's not this, I'm better than you, the stuff we could do when we got on a call, we would put a lot of guys to shame. I'll say that.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. That unconditional support for no matter what, we're just going to get this stuff done. We're going to work together and let's get it done. I love that. Yeah. Incredible. Oh, like I said, such a great episode. Guys, if you love this episode, I want you to go right now, text your friend and say, I just heard this totally rad female on Nikki's podcast. You need to listen to it. Share the podcast. I'm going to be throwing a ton of information in the show notes, guys, all the links for all of these courses that Michelle's talked about. Go check out the show notes. If you need certification, guys, I'm telling you, Western Canada Fire and First Aid is where it's at. Link up with me through Blue Line, then you get the Blue Line discount. You guys go get certified. They are the best. They're the best in the business, and they're only like 10 blocks down the road from Blue Line, guys. So go and check them out. Michele, thank you so much. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And it's been so much fun.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six.